welcome back to another episode of Buckeye Baseball Shop Talk. I'm Brad Goldberg, alongside pitching coach Dan DeLucia, and we are delighted to have Zack Burdi joining us. Zack, thanks for joining.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Little background on Zack. He is a White Sox, Chicago White Sox relief pitcher from Downers Grove, Illinois, from the area. Zack went to University of Louisville out of high school. He was the 26th overall pick in the first round in 2016. And we couldn't be more happy to have you on, Zack.
Yeah, thank you. You really did your research. I mean, we're boys, but we're not that, you don't know all that about – you went deep into the pipeline.
Well, there's a lot more where that came from. So let's get started. How did you end up at Louisville? I know, full disclosure, Zack and I played together in the White Sox organization and have kept in touch. But can you talk to me about getting to Louisville from high school? Because I know you weren't as big as a recruit as 26 overall 3 years later.
Yeah, it was crazy. My freshman, sophomore year, a lot of my buddies, a lot of guys I did showcases with, just kept getting grabbed, this and that. And then I was supposed to go to some big showcase. I ended up breaking my toe during some freak summer accident playing pool basketball. I ended up not going to that. So I still haven't really done any big showcases, just little ones around the high school with no scouts or anything like that. And then I did summer ball, got picked up at Iowa saw me at UIC, and it was between Iowa and Illinois. Ended up going to Iowa. Or with Iowa. And then the following spring did Super 60, had a really big velo jump. And just one of those days where everything felt right. And all of it was video grabbed and put on their website. And about 2 months later, Iowa's whole staff got wiped. And that allows you to get your release from your letter of intent and all that. And next thing you know, the release took a long time, and 4 or 5 months later, 3 weeks before school starts, I got no more offers, nothing like that. It was between Tallahassee Community College and Louisville was my last option. First option, last option. They were the place I wanted to go, and they were the last one to have an offer for me. So I went down there 3 weeks before school, showed up. Before they could even offer me whatever they were going to offer me, agreed to go with them. And 3 weeks later reported and got ready for fall practices.
Crazy timeline.
Yeah. It was wild. And for Louisville to hold on and to keep that spot open all summer was unbelievable. And truthfully really lucky when it all came down to it.
Dan, you got something?
So I guess you've had a little bit of a journey, obviously, since you've been drafted into the White Sox organization, and I guess I'm alongside with you with having Tommy John surgery. I guess just give us a little bit of insight to how that's going. Obviously, you had another setback with a knee injury, I think, but I guess talk about just that in general and the road back and the adversity and getting through that and the mindset. I think that would help a lot of, especially younger, aspiring baseball players who could hear from your perspective.
Yeah. So 17 is when my arm gave out. Huge circle events. We were playing the Louisville Bats, did it in front of tons of friends, tons of family. And so 17 happens, get surgery, get sent to Louisville. I did my first 6 months in Louisville, did some school, and then came back in 18, felt good, had a couple of good innings in the AZL, did the fall league. Following spring 19, run into another minor injury, my lat. That ends up kind of creeping down my whole arm, affecting little things here and there each outing. And then finally 19, at the end of June, dislocated my knee and had to get MPFL and had to get that repaired and then go through a whole new process. changed my whole plans of living, had to go back to AZ, had to do this. And I mean, throughout all of that, my mindset changed. Each injury brought something new to the table. Each step along the journey was something I had to come to grips with because, I mean, 17, I was close. I was really close. I was probably, if I was on the same, I think I had like 8 score. I was probably another month and a half away of good outings and this and that to getting my chance. And coming to terms with that was tough. And that can go for anybody, any different, I guess, situation. High school kids who get hurt and miss the summer circuit or miss the fall circuit and have to go to a JUCO because they never got the chance to do this or that, and just going on different routes and because of circumstances that your body puts you in. And then with that, it was, you have so many injuries and you have so much of like time in the rehab mindset that you almost forget that player's mindset of going out there and accomplishing what you want to accomplish and not worrying about what's going on with your body, because it is healthy, but you tend to forget that. And that was the big thing this spring was, I mean, I would throw and then I would do a whole like Tommy John program for my arm, and they're like, it makes sense that you want to do this because you've been stuck in it for so long, but it's time to get out of it. And once I changed my mindset and I changed my focus throughout the day, and it was more so I'm a baseball player, I'm not a guy who's hurt anymore, things just took off. Priorities changed, mindset changed. And for guys who are younger, the biggest thing that, I mean, I would say is you have to keep living. You can't, like, your life can't revolve around an injury. All these guys who get injured and they get all this praise, like, oh, you're so focused, you so this, you so that. That's all you hear as a young kid over ESPN or over the radio. Mm-hmm. So you think these guys are doing 3 workouts a day, like just sipping on eggs, like just doing everything end all be all. That's just not the truth. And that was the mistake I made, is you just forget that life goes on, and you have to keep living, or else it's going to affect your on-field play. It's going to affect who you are as a person, as a teammate.
It's funny. We've had a couple of these talks with other people we've interviewed, and our head coach, Coach Beals, talks a lot about when everything else in your life is kind of handled, the baseball part normally takes care of itself, right? It's a lot easier to play on, play and play loose and play free when everything else in your life socially, whether it's school for college or high school guys or relationships for pro guys, is going well. Normally frees you up for whether it's rehab or success or even failures. You can handle them in stride a little bit better.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I mean, you see it all the time, especially, I mean, when you're around it and you see that it's a lot more in pro ball, because there's a lot more that comes with growing up and playing baseball at the same time. Income, financial stuff, relationships, kind of breaking down, being away from your family. And yeah, I mean, you see guys who just can't make it who have all the talent in the world, but their brain just can't handle the ups and downs of not just baseball, but the real world. And then both of them can kind of affect the opposite. So yeah, no, I completely agree with that. That's a really good point.
I want to reverse back from where Dan was, take a step back. We played together in 2016 in Charlotte, and I want to know about, just looking back for you, the year of 2016 for you. You're in college. You're at the University of Louisville. You guys you gave up a walk-off home run, which is kind of infamous. Not to bring back bad memories. And then, 3 months later, you're in AAA knocking on the door to the big leagues. Can you just talk about, like, the ups and downs and how crazy of a year that was? Because there's not many people that go through that, and kind of how fast your mind was going and where you were at between college, making some money, moving 3 levels. I know I said a lot there at you, but you take me through the ups and downs of that year in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, 16 was crazy. 16 goes all the way back to when Louisville took a trip to the Dominican Republic, and we played the red and the green team in the Dominican League. I can't remember their names. The Escogitos and somebody else. And so I'm playing all these pro guys. I mean, you don't realize how stacked that league is. Those are AAA, big league, AA dudes. And we went down there, we scrimmaged them, and I got crushed, just absolutely demolished. And I remember thinking, like, man, this is the next level. And that right there made everything click for me. I was like, I'm so far behind where I want to be. And having those live ABs against these players who are, like, college kids tend to names get around. So you play summer ball, you play this and that, and everyone knows the big names from each school. And when you play them, college kids, I mean, they just have a weaker mindset when, like, names tend to scare them. That's not the case when it comes to pro ball guys. Pro ball guys don't care what you did yesterday, what you did the last year. They're going to attack you each and every way. So that
especially in
experience
college too.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that experience helped me a ton. And then I go into the spring. I have a really solid spring. And then obviously, like you said, super regionals, we're down 1-0. And obviously they win. They go to the College World Series. My career at Louisville's over. And I'm like, man, like, it just got taken away from me so fast. And then before I could even blink, I'm in Winston-Salem doing the same thing. And I can't remember his name, the shortstop, Mondesi, I'm facing him in Wilmington. He takes one like 450 dead center. I'm like, oh my God, like, it's crazy. Like, I can't, like, I don't even know, like, I got put in a situation where maybe I'm not cut out for it. And then a couple mechanical changes, probably back then had no idea that I was doing it, but moving up from a 130 to more of a 105, 12 to 50 axis, trying to get on top of the ball and create that angle. And yeah, I mean, it just kind of took off, go to Birmingham, which is AA for the White Sox, last about 3 weeks there, get sent to Charlotte. And I remember getting there and being like, dude, this is a completely different realm of baseball. Leaving games, guys like hugging their family, hugging their 5-year-old kids. I mean, we got Vinny, who's got 2 years in Japan, just compared to 18 and 21-year-olds at Louisville, whose biggest problem is their calculus test that week. And then now you have real world problems in the locker room. And yeah, just crazy. And like career, I remember Vinny giving, Vinny was our catcher. He was 35 at the time, and just giving a speech about how this was probably going to be his last year. And he just wanted to make a playoff run and winning 4 games straight, feeling that professional adrenaline of that chase and all this stuff in my first year. And I just remember it being like so grateful, yet so overwhelmed by the ups and downs of that entire 9-month stretch. And when it all ended, just being like, just recapping and just being able to say how many new faces I met, how much baseball I got exposed to. Yeah, I mean, overall, one word, crazy. And something that I'll never forget. That was an awesome stretch of baseball and life all together.
That was a fun team. And just for reference for people listening, when Zack came up, he was sitting at like 99 to 102 on his fastball. And there were innings where I've never seen – I didn't have big league experience at this time, but I've never seen hitters look so bad in my 4 years of professional baseball at that time. And then you think to yourself, you know, this skinny kid is he was in college 3 weeks ago. It's like, it's crazy, 3 months ago. And he was just, I mean, there were innings where it was 10 pitches, 3 strikeouts, and guys missing by a ton. So that year was really fun to watch.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, that whole team, I extremely lucky that team was so close and allowed me to come in at such a crucial time during the year. And like I said, eye-opening and something that I'll never forget, especially how I was treated in the locker room for the first time as such a young player.
Do you think, to piggyback off that, you're still very, very young, and we'll get into that. You're still extremely young. But do you think down the road, I foresee you having a long career and hopefully a ton of big league time, that experience will help you treat younger guys? If you see some more, you know, quote unquote prodigies or young stars come up to AAA or the big leagues, that you'll be the guy that kind of puts them under your wing or says, hey man, like, luckily enough, I was in your situation in 2016 and here's a couple of ways to go about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that situation is going to help with, anything. I don't think it really matters. What a lot of guys think is, and it's sad to watch, is they look at the guy to the left and the right in the locker room. They don't see him as a teammate. They see him more as competition. And I think it's just such a poor way to go about it. And I was lucky that the locker room that I walked into in Charlotte that year wasn't like that. But, you see it all over. And you see it at every level, high school, college, professionally. And you see these dudes who are willing to dust one of the boys and put them under the bus for their personal gain. And I remember seeing it for the first time at each level. And it's more prominent professionally because now you're dealing with their lives and their incomes, and it's either you or me. And I remember thinking, like, you can't live like you can't be that type of person, because each one of those guys is known for being that guy. They're known for willing to snub one of their buddies for a spot in order for their dream to come true. And I always thought about it like, if you're not good enough to beat the guy to your left or right while also being a good person and a good human to them, you probably aren't going to last up there to begin with. So that cup of coffee might taste good, but it's going to be a short one, and you're not going to last, because those veterans aren't going to let you come into their locker room and cheer for them doing bad. Just not how it's going to work. And learning that at a young age definitely is going to help me throughout the rest of my career, because I'm seeing it now. I got guys younger than me, Hoyer, Johnson, Cody Hoyer and Tyler Johnson, two flame-throwing dudes in our system. One year after me, the next year, two years after me. These dudes are throwing 99, 101. What am I going to do? I'm going to sit at the edge of the dugout, pray for them to do bad because I don't have enough confidence in myself. It just, in my opinion, I get fired up over this topic. It just drives me nuts watching guys cheer against anybody. So
I think we couldn't reiterate that more. We talk about in our locker room, and our head coach echoes this, but I think especially for younger guys, and even guys that are, it doesn't even matter if they're younger or not, but you're always going to be remembered more as a good teammate than you will as a good ball player. Like, you and the guys you played with, same with Goldie now, the guys that we played with, I couldn't reel off hardly any stats, right? But we know in our heads who the guys were that were great in the locker room, right? That great teammates, and people remember for really the rest of your life, and be able to talk to in a good light to other people versus real stats and how good they were. So I think that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah.
No, I completely agree.
This goes back to your rehab. Now, I think you had a stint, or not a stint. I think you did some rehab down at Florida Baseball Ranch. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So Randy Sullivan has become a good friend of mine, and I stop down there usually once or twice a year and talk with him and whatnot. So take us through just some of the stuff that you like that he's doing. Again, we're big proponents of what he does, but just some of the stuff you did down there with him.
And I saw you guys. So a lot of things I liked was how personalized it was. Getting in there, getting an assessment, and having a plan written out specifically for who you are and what you do and how your body type works. So me going there, a lot of guys have the same experience, just different outcomes, and the sense of their hips are open or the hips are closed. Their foot comes off to get airborne before release, this and that. And leaving there, I felt very confident in what I had just done. And I remember, might have been last year, maybe it was this year, Goldie, when you did, I had my assessment, and then you guys were doing assessments with your PT staff at Ohio State. And I thought that was really impressive because, that's where it's trending. That's what these high school kids are going to be used to. And they're used to going to Driveland. They're used to going to Florida Baseball Ranch. They're used to getting these self-made plans. And if you show up somewhere on a recruiting visit, or maybe you just didn't think about it before you went, and you're doing a program that's meant for a hitter, but you're a pitcher, or vice versa, and next thing you know, you're wasting 3-4 years of development on stuff that's not even going to benefit you. So just leaving there, I remember thinking like, man, I really just got a plan that's going to work for me. And in that plan was a lot of the connection ball. Connection ball was huge for me. I had a huge forearm play, which for people who don't understand, forearm play is what up, arm sleeve. Forearm play is when you're outside this 90 degree. So I had a horrible, I was super long, like basically obtuse angle or whatever, like 120, not even close to 90. And cleaning that up this spring, and this process started way back when. I just went to Florida Baseball Ranch in person and this past, but I've been collaborating with them since 17 and using their videos and their products. And this was a long time thing for me, and to get my arm slot shorter and my swing upwards. And me and Goldie talked about it about a month ago, and some videos surfaced of me throwing in some spring training games, just how much better my arm path looked. And it's something I don't even think about because it just has been a natural process. But for Goldie, he's seen me in 17, 18 when I was super long, and then he sees that. And to have him comment that, I felt really fulfilled that all this work and this process that I've committed to finally came to light.
Works. Awesome.
Can you touch on, so you're a first round draft pick, you're throwing over 100 miles an hour, and one thing I always admired about you was your like almost like over realistic like view of yourself, and you always audited yourself and never really thought like I'm that good. You would just say there's some days when we roomed together on the road, like I'm just not that good. And I would laugh about it, and we'd always talk, and we were both very close to the big leagues. But can you talk about how like much strength it takes, or kind of how you were wired to say like, all right, you are pretty good, but in your head you're saying I always have to get better, kind of that like perpetual striving for what's next and to always get better.
Yeah. And I had the same realization right before spring started. I remember Bummer, Aaron, or Goldie's old teammate, my current one, just signed a huge $16 million extension. I remember thinking like, man, how do I get that? Like, how do you earn, like, how do you become the 1% of the 1% who signs a deal like that and makes that money and is able to contribute to their team that way? And that was my moment. I was like, man, like if I was that good, I would have gotten offered that already, but you're not that good. So how do you get to that point? And I remember like just diving into video, just going to the video room, watching Bummer, seeing what his pitches do, and then watching my video and be like, well, my pitches don't do that. And if I want to be in that position, I want to be a lockdown dude in the bigs, I want to be a top percent dude. How do I change that? And that's when I just took a huge leap into just diving into off speed, depth, everything like that. And that hard wire in my head, I mean, I've been saying that like, it just like, you'll feel comfortable, you feel good. Like, man, I'm doing, like, I'm here, I've arrived. And then you'll see somebody who's better than you and go, oh shit, I'm not even close. And Bummer was that dude for me. And that realization moment again. And yeah, I mean, it's just something that, like you said, Goalie, you can joke about it, but at the same time, if you're joking about it, there's probably some truth to it for sure.
Let's dive into some of the ways that you've tried getting better. So obviously you talked about changing your arm slot, staying on top of the ball. Are you using Rapsodo or using TrackMan with the White Sox? Can you maybe talk about the off-season process, like post rehab, and some of the stuff you're doing in season that kind of tapered you to where you are now and has kind of optimized you to become the best version of Zack Burdi?
Yeah. So some of the things I did to get better this off season was one, Florida Baseball Ranch, which was another time where I just thought like there was more in the tank and there was more there for me to accomplish. So doing that, going down there, seeing the way my body works, seeing the things I need to improve on, And Florida Baseball Ranch was never a velo thing for me. It was all a health thing. I wanted to go down there and I wanted to throw as healthy as I possibly could. I get lost in that too. I mean, people think that this drive line in this Florida Baseball Ranch is the end all be all of velo. It's just not the case. But
let's save that for after this.
Yeah,
let's save that for
I won't
after
go
this. I
down
think
that.
it's a really mature comment you just made about some of the training stuff, whether it be Florida Baseball Ranch drive line, even some universities, even youth programs that you said. Just an awesome line. I'm going to write that down and we'll save it for next. But continue on like the rep Soto or TrackMan train, if you will.
Yeah. So going to Florida Baseball Ranch, trying to accomplish what I just said, and then combining that with the new tech and the new analytical stuff that the White Sox have dove in on, and I wasn't exposed to it. So then you mix in, we go over everything from last season, and we look at my hot spots, my cold spots, and I'm getting crushed everywhere low, so on and so forth. So coming up with a new plan to adjust that, and then Yasmani Grandal came in to the White Sox and brought in a really good scouting component to the locker room, and something that I think a lot of guys are benefiting from, teaching guys how to watch video, teaching guys how to break down their stuff instead of just watching it being like, oh yeah, that was good. I'll go on with the rest of my day. But actually sitting there for the extra 15, 30 minutes, watching each pitch a couple times, seeing what your body's doing, this and that, and then combining it all. So bringing that out to the analytics, the component that Florida Baseball Ranch with mechanics, and then combining it all and still having to compete. And that's where I think a lot of guys get lost, is they go, all right, what's my analytics at? What's my this at? And then what's my sequencing at? What's my this? And then competitiveness that gets brought to the bottom, where it should be, you gotta be competitive. If you're not competitive, it doesn't matter what your stuff is. You can have a 4,000 RPM fastball. I don't care. If you're not competitive, you don't know where to put it, and this and that. Who cares? Same thing with throwing hard. If you can't put it where you want, these hitters are too good, way too good nowadays. They see 93, 95 so much that their eyes are trained for it. So your 100 is just one extra, like it's loading just a second earlier for them. It's not a huge deal, and they'll just spit on it. So using TrackMan, using Rapsodo was awesome for me, because I got to see how to improve my changeup and my slider. And once I felt that and I saw it, it became all competitive. It was, now how can I use these to get guys out? Because if my negative movement on my slider is so huge and so great, that's awesome. The video guy behind me is going to give me a high five. Who cares about that? I care about if I have to take maybe some of that negative goes off, and when I get competitive, that's fine. As long as I can throw a strike and I can do it on a consistent basis, and it is above average to a plus pitch, it doesn't need to be this plus wipeout slider that you can't even locate, if that makes sense.
It's so funny, man. Like we keep talking to guys, you're one of, the better ones in the game. We keep talking to guys, and it's like it's like everything is being resonated with the same topics. And that's another one, is, Goldie always talks about not throwing the nastiest slider in the history of baseball, right? And just throwing a more consistent one, right? Throwing a slider and then doing it consistently is really better. So I think that's really profound, again, for a guy stature and maturity. And the other thing we keep hearing is self-awareness. And again, I keep thinking, like, we're the guy, as a pitcher, we're the guy with the ball play. We're essentially like the quarterback, right? We have the ball every play. And these quarterbacks, like the best quarterbacks in the game, are watching film of themselves and seeing how they, cut apart defenses. We're no different. And I think that's where the more mature guys in the game have gone that route, where they're studying themselves and trying to be best version of themselves, but having such great self-awareness is at the root of it. So I think that's really profound, what you said.
Yeah. And I mean, you look at it, it's all about, you got to manage your expectations, especially on yourself. You can't, I remember it was Vandy, my sophomore year, they brought this lefty. I can't remember the kid's name. and he was 80-46 with like a 75-mile-per-hour curveball. And he didn't, I mean, that lineup we had that year was good too. And he just came, he looked at himself in the mirror. He's like, I'm a slow throwing lefty, but I dot up. And he dotted us for 9 straight. And I remember thinking, like, man, that was someone who knew exactly who he was, knew exactly what he wanted to accomplish, and never left that threshold of overthrowing to underthrowing. And he was just competitive the entire game and was just himself and wasn't trying to be this different person in order to meet the I'm playing Louisville, or for example, I'm playing LSU, or I'm playing Florida. And then, I mean, that translates to at-bats too. I mean, you look at Trout, the guys who face Trout, and I mean, that's a big example, but they're very tentative of how they want to approach him. And, I mean, it makes sense. The guy's the best hitter in baseball right now, top hitter of all time. And what I'm trying to get at is that it doesn't matter who you're facing or what you're doing. You gotta know who you are, and you gotta know what you bring to the table.
No doubt.
That's huge.
On there, Goldie, on what we were.
Say it again.
Continue on the question.
Oh yeah. I want to talk
earlier.
about growing up with a brother. For those listening at home, well, Zach, why don't you talk about it? Your brother is in the big leagues, and talk about kind of the process of growing up with an older brother who was obviously a high-end player, following him to Louisville, and then his path to making it to the big leagues, and you guys getting to rehab together, which is obviously not what your family probably had planned, but the plan that you guys have been on.
Yeah. So growing up, I had 2 older brothers, Nick and then Drew, and me and Nick, it was inseparable when it came to anything. And it was really bad when it came to being competitive. Like, everything we did was, what'd you do, what I do, and who did it better type of deal. And as we grew up, it just kept going that way. And Nick was always better. He was 2 years older than me. He was always going to be better. And but being 2 years older than me, he got to watch our oldest brother grow up, and to see him train he played football at Western Michigan. To see him accomplish his goal to get that was who Nick got to watch. And so all the success and everything that me and Nick have gone through is definitely contributed to our older brother, Drew, because he set the standard he showed us that if you want to accomplish anything, it's the early wake ups, it's the late night studying, because I mean, you're doing all this stuff. You have football practice, then you're going to weights, then you have to go back home. You got to do your study and all this stuff. And so Nick passed that on to me, and then we go to Louisville together, and I haven't seen Nick in 2 years, basically. I see him at the holidays, but other than that, summer ball and baseball all year round. So I truthfully don't know who he is really anymore as a worker. And I got there and I was like, oh shit, it's not. And like I said, we're competitive. And I was like, well, I'm not going to let him outdo me in anything. So as soon as I stepped on Louisville's campus, it was an all out, like, everything we were doing in the weight room, everything. And he was still crushing me. And that kind of carried me along my freshman year I got to watch, and he left after his junior year. So my sophomore and junior year, I was like still chasing everything that he accomplished over the past 2 years, trying to set that gold standard, because I saw what it did for him. I saw what came of the success that it brought and this and that. And then to later on go separate paths. I go to the White Sox. He's now with the Pirates. To get our Tommy Johns on that same calendar year, and then do that process together. It was the same thing for both of us. It was no longer I'm looking up to him or he's looking down to me. We were on the same playing field, and we were just bouncing ideas off each other, bouncing different things that we can do. And you see that a lot in pro ball, and you see it with a lot of the mature guys who, touching back, they don't see anybody as competition. They just see them as walking information. They just want to just grab onto you, and they want to hear what you have to say. You see guys, that's why guys always right now are leaning towards Dallas Keuchel, Gio Gonzalez in our locker room, because they're not envious of what they do, or they don't want them to do bad. They just want information. They want to know what they did to get to the point of being, like I said, that 1% of the 1%. And me and Nick now have that opportunity to do that with each other and share information that we get from our teammates. And it's something that's really helped us grow as not only baseball players, but as brothers. And it's really developed a relationship for sure.
Awesome.
You want to talk about your experience with that, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, obviously not at the big league level, but yeah, I played with my younger brother at Ohio State, so I had similar. I was on the other end, like your brother Drew. I was the older brother, so it's cool to see the, you know, kind of what maybe my brother went through and the looking up, because I think he was in that same boat where when you look up, you kind of see, but you don't, like you said, you didn't even know like the work ethic anymore until you really got there. So it's cool seeing from your perspective, and I have a similar story just from the flip side. So it's good stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
You have any more questions, Dan?
I don't.
I have a couple more, Birds.
I got nothing on. Are you doing anything today?
No, I'm talking to you, brother. So you're one of the few guys that we ever hear from that talks about, you know, maybe taking a couple ticks down to create more pitch quality, if you will. Is that fair to say? Obviously, there's most guys are trying to find, you know, a mile an hour here, 2 miles an hour here, want to throw 90, and then they get to a different benchmark and it's 95, and then a different tax bracket is 97, right? And you're a guy that's been up to 102, and now you're talking about, at least you and I personally talked about, you're 95, 98, but you're willing to throw 95 if it's within your realm of efficiency and time on the clock and access, right? Can you kind of elaborate on the maturity and how you've gotten there?
Yeah. I mean, in college and coming out of high school, especially high school college transition, you want to be the kid you want to be the hardest thrower. You don't really care about that stuff, and you don't care about location. You don't care about pitch quality or anything like that. And I had that mindset my first year in pro ball, and was able to maintain that high level velocity and that pitch quality. And as I kept going and injuries kept happening, I started looking at what mindset and what am I doing with my body that's putting it in these positions that it's breaking down. And yeah, I mean, it took a lot to rid myself of that identity of I'm going to be the hardest thrower on this team, and because I held on to it for so long. So to find myself in a position where now, say, I mean, 95 is middle ground for a lot of the MLB now. And I mean, a lot of guys are throwing it. To find myself back in the middle of the pack, at first I was like, man, like that identity, I'm leeching onto it. And then you see the success. And just like, as soon as I saw the success and how much better I was, lowering my intensity and lowering my output and how much it affected the drop and the movement and the ability to get to the time zone, the time access that I wanted. And now, I mean, it was something, now I'm identifying as that's me. That's who I want to be. I don't want to be the guy who's throwing 99, walking 4 every 2. That's not who I want to be, because it doesn't work. And if you think it's going to work, you're just putting off the realization of you need to make pitches, and you need to make pitches consistently, because that's what the best guys do. And it's so black and white. Garrett Cole is Garrett Cole because Garrett Cole makes 4 to 5 of his pitches, not 90%, 70% of the time. And he's the best at it right now. And if you look at the guys who are 5, 10, 20 slots under him as top pitchers in the league, they all do the same thing. They're just a little bit less than he is. And seeing that realization, seeing those analytical numbers was something that I couldn't let go of. And now I'm seeing that outcome of it, and just in loving the sense of I don't need to be this overpowering dude to have success. And it's going to allow my body to, in the coming years, last longer into a season.
Really mature. I guess the last question is the one that you mentioned is talking about going to Florida Baseball Ranch, or you said it, a lot of guys, drive line is part of the baseball lexicon now. And while that's all well and good, and we use their stuff and they have great stuff, you mentioned, throwing healthy and being healthy over a long period of time over velo. Can you kind of delve into what you're going to talk about before I rudely interrupted?
No, you're good. Bauer said something interesting. I think it was like a year or two ago. He said you got to learn to throw before you can learn to pitch, and a lot of people make that mistake where they don't know how to. And I fell to it too. You don't learn how to throw. What you learn to do is just locate. And some guys, in order to locate, have to have super bad mechanics. So for me, learning after my TJ, learning to throw healthy and learning to accomplish what I want to accomplish, while also putting my body in the best spots and location to maintain that health was huge for me. And I look at these high school kids and these dudes doing driveline and in Florida Baseball Ranch, and they get these tools, they get the connection ball, they get this and this. I don't know how to use them. And I'm going to batting cages trying to get my work done and like holding myself back from interrupting these people because they're just throwing weighted balls. They're just throwing balls at these connection balls and having no sense of what they even want to do with them. And it's dangerous. It's something that could put a lot of people in bad positions because everyone's just trying to chase that velo. Because velo is apparently the biggest thing. And which, don't get me wrong, it is. You look at the guys, 93 to 100 is the new. That's the meat. That's the meat and potatoes of it. That's where you want to be. And but you also can't. If you're gonna get there and risk your health to do it, you're gonna break down anyways. It's gonna happen 6 months. If your body can't handle it, can't handle it. So for me, the biggest thing is it's health over velo 100% of the time, because I've seen when you prioritize velo, what happens to your body. And it's just it's a cycle that's never going to end until you allow your mind to get rid of that concept and bring in more up-to-date information that these articles and these, this academia that's coming out about it is saying.
That's good insight. One thing I just want to get out there is, and when I was playing with you for multiple years, you were at the forefront of eating healthy, like crazy healthy. You were a workout freak, super pliable with your body into all that stuff, right? And it showed with throwing really hard, but it also showed that even doing everything right, if you're not efficient with your mechanics and repeating in positions that can be that cause and effect to that efficiency, even if you're doing everything right, there's a possibility that you're going to break down. I think you're an example of the bad end, but after talking to you now and creating our relationship going forward, it's like, you've overcome that and adapted, which is huge. That's self-awareness to adapt. And instead of just saying, I'm just going to keep doing what I was doing and hopefully, something clicks one day, is awesome to see.
Yeah. And I think what you said, the word repeatable is so big. And if you can't repeat your mechanics, you're never going to be able to throw hard anyways. They're just not going to, your release point's always going to be off. Your arm's going to drag, your arm's going to be forward, this and that. And so like you said, that self-awareness to be repeatable is so big when it comes to pitching and hitting, of course, as well.
You doing anything fun during this time? Just trying to do some prison workouts or compete, or what are you doing now? It's an unprecedented time.
Dude, just living that suburban lifestyle right now. Doing workouts in the garage. Doing Peloton on not a Peloton bike, which was interesting. And yeah, just trying to stay safe, dude. It's crazy. One of those things where you just have to adapt to the circumstances and try and make the most out of them.
Well, we can't thank you enough for coming on, and there's some awesome nuggets for players of all ages. And when you make your debut this year, you can let people know that it started with the Shop Talk Zoomcast during the global pandemic.
Hey, don't forget it, baby.
Right. Yeah, thanks, Zach. You know, a lot of wise stuff in here. I hope guys that are listening can take some of this and really apply it. There's really good stuff there. And best of luck.
Thank you guys. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Absolutely. All right, man. Take care.
Awesome. You guys too. Have a good one.